It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce our moderator today, Gabriel Kirestian. I've known him for 18 years and had the privilege to work with him for many years. Gabriel is currently the Latin America Payments and Receivables Head at Citi Treasury and Trade Solutions. He joined Citi in Argentina in 1996 and worked as a relationship manager and corporate credit officer for the financial institutions client segment. He then joined Latin America Treasury and Trade Solutions in 2000 as regional sales manager, and since then he has held many management and client-facing roles, including sales head for the technology, media, and telecommunications sector, as well as branded consumer and healthcare science sector. Gabriel was recently appointed as regional payments and receivables head for Latin America in January of 2018, where he is responsible for idea generation, product development, rollout and commercialization of all domestic and cross-border payments and receivable solutions for Citi in Latin America. Gabi's team is leading the digital transformation of the payment ecosystem in the region, including digital consumer payments, instant payments, online real-time accounts receivables reconciliation, among other innovative solutions. Prior to joining Citi, Gabi worked at Ernst & Young as financial advisory services. Gabi holds a bachelor's degree in information systems, a bachelor's degree in operations management, and a master's degree in industrial biotechnology. Please let me welcome him. Welcome with a round of applause. Gabi.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And thank you, Christy, and the Women in Payments organization for having me, for letting me be part of this great agenda. Please, let's have a seat.
Thank you.
I was saying, for letting me be part of this great agenda. I was checking the agenda, a few days ago, and I'm quite impressed by the quality of the agenda, the quality of the participants. I also realized today that I'm the only male participating here. I'm not intimidated at all, being in a room with 100 women, but I'm truly honored and grateful, to be here. And I'm very excited, about the event. I was talking about, the quality of the agenda, the quality of the participants, and I believe, the relevance of this event goes beyond its original intent, because I can say with confidence that we don't have a payments forum like this one in Latin America. I mean, we have many forums, we have many events, banking industry events, cards industry events, acquiring cards, fintech forums, a lot of events that touches, payments in different ways from different angles, but we don't have a payment forum like this one that attracts this level of talent from across the region. A talent that works in payments from all those different angles that are usually seen isolated. So I believe that the relevance of this event goes beyond, again, what women in payment is. So I'm very grateful to be here, for that as well. And I'm also very excited to moderate this panel on innovation with such interesting participants that I will allow them to introduce themselves. So why don't you start?
My name is Milena Perez, and I'm responsible for the business development unit at SWIFT, covering Latin American clients and Caribbean clients. I'm based here in Miami, and we actually, many of you maybe don't know, but we actually have a sizable office here. I have the privilege of having 4 of my colleagues sitting here with us today. It's about 27 of us here based in Miami, and among us, we cover the entire Latin American region. So it's an honor and a privilege to be with you all today.
Hi, thank you. I'm Lisa Niño. I'm Digital Strategy Head for Latin America for the Treasury and Trade Solutions business at Citibank. For me, it is a pleasure to be part of this panel with Andrea, Milena, and Gabriel, sharing our experience, knowledge, and insights regarding innovation. My career has been basically in banking and fintechs. I have been in Citi for 2 different stages. In my previous position, I was in charge of the Andean digital business at the product side, covering Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Chile. And previous, I have the opportunity to be into fintechs, also with building solutions for corporations, but with a different speed. And I was the country manager for one of them for Colombia and Ecuador, and also the sales manager. And in my first stage at Citi, I worked in implementation of digital solutions in the financial institution segment. So a lot of things to share, to learn from you, and happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Andrea Morelli, and I'm the Vice President of Product and Marketing for American Express, based in Mexico. Very excited because our panel has very broad type of experience, and even though we are all in payments, what we are talking about is just that payments nowadays is just so broad. And I think it will be an interesting panel discussion because we'll give different perspectives. I mainly focused on consumer, and we do charge products. We have some of my colleagues from acquiring and also from lending, and so it will give a different perspective. I also manage the digital, the brand, so it's going to be an interesting complement to the point of views of this session today. So very privileged to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we will talk about innovation. And this is a subject that has been discussed, used, abused, a lot since we started our careers, right? But I truly believe this is a very relevant subject in the payment industry these days. And in my opinion, that is because the way we approach, the way we defined, the way we implement innovation ideas in our organizations, especially in payments, have changed significantly in the last few years. And I believe we have gone from a more single company, in-house approach of innovation towards a more ecosystem, cooperative, industry-wide approach to adopt innovative ideas and solutions. And that is a radical change. It seems like a simple change, but it is a radical change for us to manage within our organizations because it requires a totally different approach and it requires us to adopt different roles. I mean, for example, for us at Citi, in the last few years, we have changed, our roles, especially in payments. We have changed our role in terms of how we approach innovation towards a role that is more like an orchestrator of innovative solutions and ideas that are in the market, that in a way that we integrate those solutions and ideas to get to the type of responses that corporates and consumers demand these days, in a way that we couldn't do if we do it by ourselves. So that is how we see at Citi our role in terms of innovation and solutioning of our products. And I believe that requires, again, a different approach, an open mind approach towards innovation. And with that, open mind approach is that I'm going to start, the discussion. I'm going to trigger the discussion with the first question. Maybe I will start with you. And the first question is, what do you think is the main driver? For you, in your organization, in your role, what is the main driver for innovation these days? Is it regulations? Is it fintechs? Is it technology?
So,
what do you think?
To me, the main driver for innovation, if it's not the end user, it's not going to function. Today, what we are looking for is frictionless experiences. Every day is more immediate. There is an evolving change in consumer demands. So if you're not putting that customer centricity, that now you talk about it and it's like so outdated. It's not like the fashionably, everyone is, already used that jargon, but it is true. If you're not thinking about the end user, then, what transformation are you driving? And are they really relevant? Today, we are in an industry of payments where it's not anymore about financial institutions, right? We're talking about giants of the digital or the technology industry. We are talking about telecommunications. We are talking about logistics, and everyone is coming together to provide a payment solution. So I think it is important for us to think about that end user at the end of the day and how frictionless that experience is going to be. Otherwise, you're out of the game, because it's not only you're competing anymore, American Express with other banks, and you're competing with a whole different ecosystem that is evolving so quickly. Think about e-commerce. We're talking about payments. At the end of the day, we also are thinking about having the frictionless shopping experience. You think about e-commerce and how it evolved. It's funny because at American Express, we're known for a lot about our travel and lifestyle on the consumer space, our focus on the premium segments. But what happens during the pandemic when all your Centurion card members are just buying toilet paper in the pandemic to stock, and they are not going anymore to that luxurious travel. So having that user in mind and understanding that evolving changes in their consumer needs is number one. I can speak about American Express because it has a different tweak into the payment industry. We define ourselves as a servicing provider. And so at the end of, I think what you have to look at in your company is your mission. If I am a service provider, I want to make sure that I'm backing up my customers anywhere in the world. And do I have that global presence? Do I have that global frictionless experience? And if you think about that, I have different metrics. So what are the metrics that you're using compared to your statement and your mission in your company? I look at, when I have my digital team, I look at those regular KPIs of digital that we all have, how the completion rate and how customers are seeing your experience. But I also have different ones that relate to that servicing mission, which is, what is my service ratio? What is the service ratio in digital? How many logins am I having versus the number of calls? Am I really translating that offline experience into my digital experience in the same way? In Mexico, we have over 90% of our card members that are digitally active, so they're expecting that level of service. So if you're not based on that end user experience, I think if that is not your main motivator, then you're just solving for some transactional situations that can change.
Thank you. Milena.
And to complement Andrea, right, I do think that the answer to that, Gabby, is a combination of drivers. I don't think we can say it's one thing that's driving companies to have to innovate, but I would say that it's probably a combination of a few things that we're noticing, right? One of them being predominantly the change of our consumers. To your point about client centricity and keeping clients' needs at the fore and front of everything we're doing in terms of innovation. So we really think that customers are demanding different, they're expecting different, and so that's definitely one of the top drivers that's pushing companies and businesses to have to innovate. Definitely an increased competition, a landscape with many more players, like Andrea was mentioning, is definitely the top of the list. And then I would say that the introduction of new technologies and all these drivers combined is what's really putting excruciating pressure on businesses to really have to innovate. But, if we take a quick look at the financial industry for a second, this is really challenging. It's easier said than done for the financial industry, right? So when we look at some numbers out there, right? So according to McKinsey, 94% of CEOs are unhappy with the way their companies innovate. They don't like it. They're unhappy with the way they're trying to strike the right balance between all the things they have to do. plus innovate. So we're talking about, managing current operations of your existing businesses. We're talking about meeting all the growing demands in terms of global compliance and regulation, right? We're talking about protecting customer assets, all while trying to, develop the businesses of the future, right? So that can be really, really challenging. And so I think in my belief, it's very important that the financial community really comes together to try to solve common problems where applicable. And it's that behavior that's really going to help unlock some of those challenges in order to allow our companies to better innovate.
Thank you.
Okay, and just to complement what Andrea and Milena shared, is for me, one of the main drivers is to really incorporate innovation in the corporate culture. That means with real tangibles, as having people focus on innovation 24/7, but also bringing dynamics to interconnect in a daily dynamics with the people at the business, and to create that kind of atmospheres and interaction with discipline, because they don't arise from nothing, is to create the atmosphere in order that ideas and innovation could arise at any business unit and any employee, but with the support of all of the people surrounding this to make this innovation happen. The second driver for me is to make enough efforts to retain the best talent we could have. And not only internal talent, but also with the partners that we are working, and with this extended network that we build when we interact with other banks, with fintechs, with association, with academia. So also work in this, getting the best talent, also working to close any gap that we could have with the current employees that we have, because this is evolving. And we were talking before this that we need to gain every day new skills and new knowledge, and this will going to continue in this way. And finally, a third driver is technology, and is basically because with these new technologies, we get and create interactions and that otherwise couldn't happen. We have another context, and we are able to create what we didn't imagine some years before.
Thank you. Interesting. Interesting that all of you are mentioning the end user, the consumer, as one of the main drivers for innovation. In Citi, we are a corporate bank, right? In Latin America. We don't have a consumer banking franchise in any country except Mexico, where we have already announced our divestiture of the consumer banking business. But I always say that concept of a corporate bank or a B2B ecosystem doesn't exist anymore, right? Because ecosystems are so integrated that in the commercial chain, at the end of that ecosystem, there is always a consumer. And because those ecosystems are so integrated, that consumer is dictating the behavior of the entire ecosystem. So even if you are in a, let's say, B2B segment of that ecosystem, if that consumer at the end of the ecosystem wants always on, 24/7, online real time, immediate settlement, the entire ecosystem must behave like that. So interesting that you're mentioning that. I don't want to drop my papers because I brought, when I took my notes, I took my notes and I also brought the payments investment strategy for 2023. I don't want to forget this here, okay? It's a true story. Okay. So let me ask you then a follow-up question. I can start with you, Milena. I mean, how is the organization responding to this new paradigm, especially in terms of new entrants? Because many of the innovative solutions and ideas that we are seeing in the market, even the ones that our organizations are implementing, are coming from those new entrants, right? Fintechs, startups, payment intermediaries, call it, in many ways. What is the approach of your organization in terms of that? Is it more cooperative? You see them more as a competition? What is it?
Yeah. So I work for Swift, right? So collaborative innovation really is what I think it's the answer to that from our perspective. And what I mean by that is, collaboration it's part of our DNA. Is what we do, is what we've done. And we know for a fact that one of the top 5 behaviors to drive really successful innovation at companies is collaboration. So we really believe that collaborative innovation is at the heart of everything we do at Swift. It has been for the almost 50 years since we were initially created, and we really believe that it's through that collaborative innovation spirit that we're able to bring together all those more than 11,000 entities globally to really, identify industry-wide challenges and co-create and co-innovate and together come up with solutions that are really gonna be sustainable and that are really truly inclusive, because we're developing them, with the industry and really by the industry, if we look at it from that perspective. And maybe on collaborative innovation, if I can share an example of something that we've been spending a lot of time and work towards, and that's one of the digital assets that we at Swift are really looking at and what our role can be in that space, and that is central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. And so there's a very recent report by the Bank of International Settlements that tells us that 9 out of 10 central banks are currently experimenting with CBDCs. So that's huge, right? And we already know that many of them are live. Actually, 9 of them are already live with their digital currency, most notably Nigeria and the Bahamas. So this is happening, right? And what we don't want to miss is that blind spot of how do we get to use CBDCs for cross-border transactions, right? And so this is where we believe that Swift really can play a critical role in facilitating and enabling that interoperability and that interlinking that will be required to be able to successfully use CBDCs in that space. As we see it, right, the risk that we see that we run is possibly running into fragmentation, because we know that these domestic CBDCs are developing on different technologies and different protocols, right? So that's the risk that we see, is that we must really make sure that there's a way to interoperate and interlink. And so with that in mind, and in that sense, since 2021, at Swift, we have conducted our first set of experiments in CBDCs. And basically, we were able to successfully demonstrate and orchestrate a transaction from end to end, a cross-border transaction, that is, from an entity sitting on a DLT-based CBDC network to one sitting on a real-time gross settlement system. And now what we're doing with that is we're taking it a next level, right? And in collaboration with a technology company based out of Paris called Capgemini, we're actually testing the interlinking aspect of it, right? So all these domestic CBDCs that are emerging worldwide, how can Swift interlink them to be able to utilize CBDCs to conduct cross-border payments that are instant, that are frictionless, that are seamless, right, using CBDCs? And so we're in really advanced stages of this experiment, and we're really excited because we're going to be sharing with the community results on that real soon. But I highlight that not only because of the innovative aspect of the story, but also because I think it truly highlights what I was referring to as innovative and collaboration being at the heart of everything we do here at Swift. So I just wanted to share that.
We are all very interested in those experiments and their results.
Yep.
That's for sure. So Lisa, you want to add, what is our approach at
Yes,
Citi?
sure. In Citi, for sure, it is more geared towards collaboration. And I think that there is, that when we really make impact, and also not only the society, but when we talk with regulators, they said there is a piece that is not already ingested in the financial market of digital money, but also of cash. And if we want to make impact, this couldn't be made of a play of one player. It should be the collaboration of a lot of players. So we have been in a journey of having different instances for collaboration, not only with fintechs and with tech firms or with other payment intermediaries, but also going to regulator, going to bank association, understanding the digital agenda, It's very interesting to see that in some geographies, there are regulators which in this moment have or are launching sandbox, for example. So there are spaces where we are able to co-create and to bring to the table something that you mentioned, that is interoperability. If we build solutions, but we don't have the possibility to interoperate in a market or in a cross-border effort, it weren't going to solve what the society is demanding and also the non-financial exclusive.
Thank you.
I want to provide a point of view from a giant like American Express from more than 150 years ago. I think it is disrupting us in a way to think differently. Think about, I'm sure a lot of you work with legacy system in your issuing business. You know, you have to provide that agility, but at the same time, you have to move this global agenda with connected systems, and you have to keep up the pace. So I think that there is this disruption is bringing new competition, which is making us rethink the way that we do business, and that's healthy, and also collaboration. There's the two different models where you're competing against and you're collaborating with, right? And at the end of the day, we all add value to the ecosystem. We all are trying to figure it out and solve for what the end consumer is looking for, right? So I think it inspires new ideas. I think it set up new standards in the industry that we all have to abide to. So I look at the different players with admiration to understand what are they doing better than I am. Wow, look at this new user experience in like 1 second, now everything is instant, everything is frictionless. It doesn't matter the form factor. So you learn from them. But at the same time, having an organization, as you were talking about, also making space in the organization to collaborate and find those partnerships where you are better with. You know, Amex has this organization called Amex Ventures, and similar to many other companies, you know, we're investing in startups, learning from them, designing with them, providing support. And we have in the commercial segment that you were talking about, that is something that we need also to look at. We have partnered with Crisco in Mexico, Cabbage we acquired, you know, all in the sake of trying to fix those spots where, you know, we can find that seamless experience. We in Amex is pretty interesting because, and then I want to get to the point of data, because in Amex we are a different animal in the sense that we are the issuer, the acquirer, and also the network. So that provides what we call the closed loop, and we all know that data is king, right? What to do with this data. But you know what? All these other new players also add to this ecosystem in terms of information. And today we're known from, for example, our fraud systems. You know, I'm sure many of you are getting your alerts and, hey, we detected. It's so advanced because of all this data that we collected, not only from this closed loop, but also from these amazing different partners that are out there thinking about different solutions that are bringing new things to the table. At the end of the day, again, if you're having that customer obsession, working with data, you will figure it out whether you need a collaboration where others are doing better than you, and learn from them.
Thank you, thank you. Let me ask you this now. I mean, we are all exposed to this environment that we are describing, right? This environment driven by innovation, disruption, new ways to approach ideas, new ways to implement solutions. It's a totally different environment that one could think is a more modern environment. Is such an environment a facilitator for gender inclusion, or it doesn't make any difference? Can I start with you, Milena?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll take a stab at that one, and I think I'll flip it around.
Okay.
Because there's data that shows us that it's actually an inclusive environment that sets up the perfect canvas for outstanding innovation. So we need to ensure that we're putting the work in to generate environments where, we welcome different opinions at the table, where, failures are viewed really as opportunities to learn. And it's precisely in these environments that innovation can really take place in its best form. So I don't know if it's an innovative environment that facilitates gender equality, but I think it's gender equality that's needed to really get us to outstanding innovation.
Agree. What do you think, Lisa?
Yeah, for sure. And from my experience, I think that innovative environments give us the opportunity to be inclusive, but not only in a matter of gender, which is important, and we have a lot to contribute, but also in terms of include different backgrounds, different in terms of experience, different ages. I think that to have people with a lot of experience combined with those that are not blind because they receive in the career maybe negative feedback for something that could be performed. But to have this kind of inclusion also in terms of nationalities, cultures. So in my experience, I also, when I went to fintechs, it is like part of the essence is a plus to have diversity. And you say, wow, and all the people is open and are not afraid to lose, to make a mistake, because we all the time have something to say and to make it better. So for sure, it is more open to inclusion of all kind of inclusion.
Yeah, I think the difference that we have to make culturally within the organization is rather about accepting different point of views, but valuing, celebrating those point of views, because that influences directly in the team you're working with, the motivation, the drive, and the end results. We can cite 500 different studies that say why inclusion and diversity brings, different results. I'm fortunate to work in a company. We have more than half of our workforce globally are women. Almost 40% are in the executive committee. So I am a strong believer of that, but at the same time, there's so much more room to grow. I was looking at a study recently on Harvard Business Review that was saying that 54 million women just gave up on their jobs. And 90% of that completely broke off and quit their career. All the strides that we've been doing about inclusion, can you imagine recovering all those 54 million into this? And we know that we have different traits of facing business, right? We know how passion and compassion we bring to a team, which are characteristics and traits that we bring to the table. And we need to keep doing our job. It's a matter of structure and initiatives, structure at a company level, making sure, I'll give you an example, because maybe here in the US, it's a given, right? But a few years ago, we started with equity on payments across the globe. So every woman in American Express globally are treated equally in terms of salary parity. And this may be this is a given in the US. Those of you who come from Latin America know how hard it is to get there. And this has to do an example of a structure within a company to create that ground for women to generate innovation. But also initiatives, what are the kind of initiatives your company are working on? We have, I'll give you an example, a G100 Women Acceleration Program for the women who are seeking to be at the C-level. You know, those sort of things, when you combine your network internally and how you drive that internally and externally, as well as policies, that will help drive that gender equality. But I think it has to do not only with that, but also think about different products that even was not even marketed for women. Think about investment products, right? They never were created based on women, right? Because up to not many years ago, we didn't have that salary that would help us get into the investment segment. So even today, there is an opportunity for investment products to think as, you know, do we have enough women in those new fintechs, or do we have enough women working on, or do we have enough women using these products that were, you know, back in the days not marketed to us, that will provide a very different way of seeing things and new products and new innovation in the marketplace.
You know, and I want to say, to complement Andrea's point, right? You're right. There's so much work that has already been done, and we see it, right? We've seen these slides with amazing stats at all of our companies. You know, she just mentioned hers at her company. At Swift, also, we are at 40% of leadership roles at the company are positions held by women. And so much work that has been done that many of us are even like benefiting from that work that many of you have done throughout the years. And, you know, in thinking about the theme this year, right, inspiring new generations, that's the work that all of us have to continue to be doing for those new and future generations to come behind us. And so, yes, there's amazing stats and great work that we're seeing, but there's a lot of work to still be done when it comes to gender inclusion, right? Recent results by a Women in Finance survey still show us how tough the environment can be for women and for underrepresented minorities, not only women, right? To still be able to reach a level where we get a seat at the table and your voice gets heard, right? These survey results show us that 78% of us, and I'll include myself because it's of women, we hear sexist jokes and comments at our jobs and at our work environment. 52% of us are actually targets of belittling comments and belittling jokes. It's 27% for men, right? So that's talking about environment where there's very recent, hot off the press results showing us that those kind of numbers. And we know for a fact that women and other minority underrepresented groups are preconditioned from very young ages, right, to not speak about our achievements. Let my work talk for me. We don't talk. We don't do healthy self-promotion. No. And that is definitely one of the big hurdles that we need to address in order to bridge that leadership gap that we still encounter and that we still gotta work towards, right? So I think there's a lot to be said in this space, and it's still a lot that we can collectively do to precisely inspire new generations and hopefully, as years go by, make it easier and easier, right? Something else that we know, right, it makes me think about my 3-year-old son, is, you know, we know that children as early and as young as 7 have all these, you know, preconceived stereotypes about careers since they're 7, right? So this morning as I was walking here, I was grabbing my 3-year-old going, "Mommy's a big executive. I'm about to go hit a panel. See you later." And I talked to him like that, you know? So I guess these are small ways in which we collectively still do this work, hopefully to make it easier and more inclusive for precisely new and future generations to come. So I think that's really important. And something last that I want to share on this topic is, I heard very recently an interview with Christine Lagarde, the president of the European Central Bank, and she said something really powerful that stuck with me. She said, you know, the beauty about confidence is that if you have it, you can give it. So I'm sure every single one of us here has that confidence to be able to give it to the next generation, to the new generation, and it's part of the work that we have to continue doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much. And you know, a question that is related to all the concepts that you have shared here, and it's going to be the last question, you know, for the panelists. All that said, I mean, when I'm approached by fintechs and startups, and this is my experience, right? In most of the cases, almost all of the cases, the founders are male. I don't know if that is your experience as well, with fintechs, especially startups, but if that is the case, why do you think that is? I mean, is it because it's more difficult for women to be heard with a truly innovative idea and take the risk, to go and pursue that idea? Or perhaps it's not the case at all, it's just my experience. What do you think? Andrea.
I think you're right. It is male predominant. I think factually we will see stats that on fintechs is male prevalent. And I think it has to do with, yes, maybe initiating this business by women, taking that risk, and we can talk about ambitions and so forth. The second is the composition of that company. They are not at the same level we are seeing in terms of their workforce, and I'll get there in a second. But also, are the products, if you don't have the workforce, are the products being developed or the services being developed with the women in mind, right? So I think it has to do with the whole ecosystem. I'm sure you have friends, I have many actually here in Miami, who quit their jobs at the fintech, going back to other industry, mainly because they couldn't find that balance. There was a lot of too much sacrificing and being able to keep their private life. I don't think it is only fintechs. I think it's across the industry. We are just seeing it more prominent now in the fintech environment, where I think that the same learnings that we have had in bigger companies like ourselves, be able to institutionalize in that. That means policies, that means enticing, that understanding the value proposition for women. Fintechs, for example, is a high return, but there is a price, right? So is this the right value proposition that women nowadays are looking for? So once, regardless of the industry, being fintechs, being companies in Latin America, still not there yet, do we have the structure? Do we have the policies? Do we have the right incentive? Do we have the role models that can speak to it? I think that may change. And then we were talking about ambitions, and I also think that there is a cultural gap that we have to bridge here. And the girls here in Amex are like, oh, we're talking about ambition again. It's all we talked about. We have a project called Ambitious Project, where we went around and asked, are you ambitious? No, I don't like to say that I'm ambitious. There's this preconcept of something negative, where in our minds, an ambition is, what you're going to do, what you value in life, what is your goal, being personal, being professional, whatever this is, it's a statement and the direction where you're going towards, right? And just declaring that, yes, you are ambitious, you want to conquer the world, you want to do this for your family, or you want to do this professionally. And I think that for many years that wasn't in our minds. And so there is a bridge to go through, being culturally owning that you were talking about. I'm going to teach my kids and how to be ambitious and be able to develop their own company, their own fintech, or being able to develop products and understanding that value proposition for women are completely different. And realizing that and institutionalizing that, it's what is going to change that perspective.
Yeah, and I think that on that point too, women getting funding is a whole issue. If we look at some accounts, right, so in 2021, according to Bloomberg, venture capital in the US 2% went to women projects, 2%. And if we look at some data that shows us Latin America, right, women raised about $38 million, men raised $13 billion. So I think there is some connection there between, yes, we don't see as many women in these type of startups, But yes, true too, that they're not really getting the funding either, right? Or a bigger piece of the cake, right? So I think that that's something interesting too.
I want to thank you, at a professional and personal level. Really, thank you for sharing your views. Okay, I believe we need more men in the audience. That's for sure. And I'm really grateful for being here, and I'm really grateful that I accepted this, because I learned a lot, and I thank you for your views, and thank you all for listening.